In our previous business document lesson, we practiced typing personal business letters, those letters that are used for personal business situations. And now we want to take a look at creating business letters. And so the difference is that with a business letter, you're conducting business on behalf of an organization that you work for. So when you are writing or when you're speaking, you speak representing some organization. So the example we have here is a letter that's written by me on behalf of Tule Lake High School. And so one of the big formatting differences here is that generally business letters have some type of formal letterhead. And that would be the section that you would find up in the header of your document that indicates the name of the organization and some relevant information such as the mailing address, some phone numbers, maybe a fax number, and an email address, and then maybe some type of a logo, something that represents your organization. And then as far as the rest of the letter goes, is very similar to what we did with the personal business letter, in that we're going to stick with the block format. The block format being that all sentences, information is lined up on the left side with no indentations. We will continue to use mixed punctuation, which is the colon after the salutation and a comma after the complimentary closing. And then a couple of new things that sometimes pop up with a business letter, and that is a reference initial. Sometimes somebody other than the writer of the letter actually types the letter, something like a secretary or administrative assistant. And so the person who actually does the typing would indicate that by putting their initials, a double space below the writer's name. So in the cases here in this classroom, most of the time we're not going to be using reference initials. And so we just eliminate those. Something else that will show up, like we had with personal business letters, is enclosures. And so if there's an enclosure notation, then that would show up a double space below the writer's signature in this location here. And then the little C here indicates that a copy should go to somebody to notify them about this particular correspondence. So in this case, a little C and then the name of the person who is to receive a copy of the letter. So let's take a look at creating letterhead. Some of you have already done this, and let's take a look at a blank document. And the formatting is going to be very similar to what we did before, except that we'll probably start with just a little bit bigger top margin. So the letterhead we're going to create is going to look something like this. There's just the THS letterhead, real standard there. Basic information along with a honker. And so the first thing to do is get your blank document, page layout, margins, custom margins, and then we will go ahead and set our top margin. Let's go ahead and set it to 2.5, 2.5, and then we'll leave the bottom left and right at 1 inch and no gutter. And click OK. And then we want to go to paragraph, line spacing, and set that again to single, like we did with our personal business letters. And then let's put 1 point spacing between our lines. And so there we have our basic page set up. And now we can go and work on the letterhead. So the first step is to insert a header. So click on the Insert Main Menu command, navigate over to Header, and then there's lots of different types of headers that you can choose from. We will just go ahead and just go with a blank header, and we don't even need that. And then we can just go ahead and use some of those skills that we learned back when we were using PowerPoint, Excel, lots of different design tools. And so for this one, just a real simple way to do it would be to insert a few text boxes, and I'm going to just draw those. And so I can draw a text box where I can put the address, and then I could insert another text box where I can put that logo or the honker. And so we can get that lined up there. And we'll move that right there so they're lined up. And so that you could come into your first text box and use any of the, you could use some design tools if you want, formatting tools as far as how you want your text to look, get as creative as you want, or the most basic thing is just to come in and just pick one of these fonts here, pick a size, and format that, and start designing. Then, of course, you can move that text box around if you need to. You can resize it. Oops. And then you can adjust that line spacing like we did with those paragraphs over at the page layout. If you don't want that spacing so far apart, make that 1. Something like that. And then you could go ahead and insert a picture into that text box. And by using the text box to insert that picture, it makes it a lot easier to move it around. There's the honker. And then some of you will remember that when it comes time to be finished with that text box, you can simply right-click on there and eliminate the outline either through the right-click of the mouse or just come up to Format, Shape Outline, No Outline, and then the text box frame or the border will disappear. And then you can do the same thing on this one here too. So that's a real quick look at creating a header with your letterhead, and of course I'll expect that you'll spend more time on that than I've done here. Just a real quick look over there. And so once you're done with that, this is real plain. You can certainly do better than that. And then when it's time to go ahead and start typing your letter, then you can double click back down into the letter section and come down. You're going to start somewhere around 2.5 inches, and then you would begin with the date. And once again, let's stick with that Times New Roman. And a size 12 font. And the first thing you would begin with, because we have letterhead, is that you would start with the date. And then 4 spaces again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then start with your letter address, and you're on your way. And the first letter that you're going to key is going to be found on page 78. And once again, once you're done with that letterhead, there's a little demo of it right there with a little bit more information. And notice it's kind of in a ghost format. If I want to go back in and edit the header, I simply double click, and then I have access to that header location once again. So there you go. There's a business letter, block format with a letterhead created within a header, setting our top margin to 2.5 inches.